All right, good evening, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Sean Callan.
Here.
Julie Chetney.
Here.
Tom Chiappa. Here. David Chris Foley. Jim McKenzie's here. Kristen Norfleet.
Here.
Sean Onmock.
Here.
If we can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so there is nobody signed up for the floor to the public, so next on our agenda would be the acknowledgements with Kristen Norfleet.
We're going to start with athletics. Indoor track highlights. The girls' indoor track team wins their first ever indoor meet for Oswego on January 28th, 2025 at OCC. Coach Don Pike celebrated his 100th career win. Congratulations to the girls' indoor track team. Still staying with athletics, let's talk winter sectionals. Congrats to the following for qualifying. From wrestling, Joshua Favada, Nathan Freeburn, Nicholas Thompson. Alternates, Jack Sturlitz, Connor Kingsley, Jose Ramos, Teddy Gossier, Austin Freeburn, and Mackenzie Rio. On indoor track, Danny Dunn, who by the way is the Class AA champion for the 600 meter, Sophia Otakati, Emery O'Brien, Logan Duvall, Colin Wallace, Audrey Donovan, Andy Shaver, the girls 4x400 and the 4x200 relay teams. Under swim and dive, Nicholas Canali, who was the Class B diving champion, Adam Green, Hunter Hutchings, and the swimmers will be decided later this week. All of our other sports at the JV and varsity level are winding down with their regular seasons, and we begin sectional play soon, including girls hockey. Don't miss that. Minetto Elementary faculty celebrated their reading growth scores. Over 85% of our Minetto students make growth in reading. Our faculty truly makes a difference every day. During our second quarter Minetto Way Assembly, DARE Officer Verda Leva shared her experiences of what it means to be a respectful and responsible problem solver. She's excited to work with our elementary students during her DARE lessons. Moving to the other side of the river is Fitzhugh Park. At our January Leader in Me Assembly, our first grade students presented Habit 2, Begin with the End in Mind. They sang a great song to remind us all the importance of this habit. We then celebrated 28 of our FPS students as Leader of the Month for the previous month of December. We're proud to mention that 75% of our Fitzhugh Park families showed up to watch their children receive Leader of the Month awards. Moving to the high school. Congratulations to the cast and crew for a phenomenal performance of Newsies this past weekend. Also, a huge congratulations to Ms. Windhausen and Mr. Dumas and all those involved with this production. Congratulations also to the OHS Winter Guard for their first place performance at ESM this weekend. And finally, our students were able to attend credit recovery during January Regents Week. Over 500 classes were recovered during this time. Great job to all of our OHS students. And next at Layton Elementary. It has been busy at Frederick Layton. We recently revived the talent show, hosted a friendly game of floor hockey with members from the Oswego Laker team, and had the opportunity to watch a women's Laker hockey game. And that's our news from around the district.
Great. Thank you very much, Kristen. Next on the agenda is one item under Board of Education. So we have the revised 24-25 instructional calendar. So if I can have a motion for the revised calendar as presented. Thank you, Tom. Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you, David. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Next up is the superintendent's report. Dr. Kilmer.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Calucci.
Most of our time is going to be spent, this is kind of our very first meeting when we're talking about budget, but prior to that, I just wanted to highlight a couple of items. One, our climate survey is coming to a close this week. So I would ask our families, students, and staff that if you have started to finish, if you haven't started, jump on there and get that done. But we really would like everyone's feedback so we can learn from the largest group of our community members as possible. Just as a reminder to go on what Kristen said, the girls' semifinals for hockey is tonight, 7 o'clock at the rink. Versus Clinton. Hope to see you there. Newsies was really an outstanding show, and I did have the privilege of having a couple lines in it, and just being able to be on the stage with such incredibly talented young men and women was an incredible honor. But it was just such an incredible music anyways. And then on the academic calendar, the revision, I did send out a communication on that as well, but just to talk a little bit more about that. So we have utilized all 5 of the snow days that we had originally scheduled in the 24-25 school year. The change that you approved actually allowed us to go do remote PD, which we actually used yesterday. We used remote PD for our staff. Which leaves us with one additional kind of day if we bring students in on June 27th. So if I have to call another emergency closure, we will bring students in on June 27th. June 27th is the last Friday of the school year, and we didn't originally in that calendar have students present, so we can utilize that. So then the question is, well, if we utilize that and we need another, what do we do? The academic calendar had outlined that we had a number of makeup dates. June 27th was one of them. And then we have to start moving into April break. We started off with that Monday and then Tuesday, and it just depended on how many days that we needed. As you may remember, Fitzhugh had to actually go remote last week because they actually used an additional emergency closure day in October because of a water issue. The staff there, students and families, did really an outstanding job with that. We had excellent attendance, and the feedback from both families and staff was generally positive. I think so many of us have such negative feelings about remote because of really the negative experiences we had due to COVID. And it wasn't in any way a pleasant experience, I think, for students, for staff, or our community for that matter. The initial feedback from the survey results that I received from both families and staff did not demonstrate a similar nature. And again, it's because this is unique. It happens occasionally on very rare experiences versus being the norm, which I think changes things dramatically. I actually shared with all of you as board members just a real summary snippet of that feedback from both staff and from families. Overall, both staff and families indicated that it was worthwhile and that they would favor a remote option should we need them in extreme circumstances where we run out of additional days. So it is something that we are continuing to work on and explore should we ultimately need to. But I thank you to Amy Malloy and her staff over at Fitzhugh Park, who really did an outstanding job of, I feel, putting that together and delivering instruction to students at home in a relatively short period of time. It was only about a week and a half from when we developed the plan to it actually having to go, and we were hoping we were going to have a lot more time. This winter doesn't seem to be giving us that flexibility or that time. And so I'm grateful to them and to the families for their participation ultimately in it. That's it. Mr. Colucci. Mr. Colucci is going to present our first presentation when it comes to budget this year. We're going to primarily start off with on the revenue side of things. As you know, we have our next 2 meetings also dedicated to budget, but we're going to be spending a lot of time on budget development with the board from now right up until our budget vote.
You all right? Everybody hear me okay? Thank you very much. Basically, this process goes all year long. We build a budget, and it's a focus of where we're gonna spend money and plan on spending money throughout the year, and it shifts and it changes all the time. So, you know, the preliminary budget overview is really, you know, high level, just quick look down on where we're expecting to go. If you look at our goals, they've been the same year after year. We want a financially sound budget, one that isn't too excessive and one that meets our needs, one that's flexible so that we can move money from one place to another depending on changing needs as the year goes on. One that's realistic, which means that we would get approval from staff and from the public that what we're doing and what we're spending money on is adequate and appropriate and can take care of emergencies as well. And one alignment is our budget is going to be aligned to our district's needs, our strategic plan, and where we expect our program to go for students. If you look at the budget as it's presented, either on our referendum or to the public in our newsletter, we have to present it three different components. The administrative component, which is basically made up of the salaries of the people and the services necessary like auditing, liability insurance, legal, everything tied to what we need to run the district is included in the administrative budget. Our capital budget is the people and things we need to keep our buildings and grounds sound, our machines running, and to make sure that things are operating in an adequate, safe, and responsible way. And then the most important part of our budget is the program budget, which is the one that defines the money and the resources in terms of people, programs, services that are going to be allocated directly to students and assist them with their program and future success. The major parts of our revenue, you received a handout today that had two different pieces of revenue tied to it, but our major parts of our revenue are from state aid. We really have no control of how much state aid we get except for how we spend some money on expense-based aid year after year. It's determined by the New York State Legislature and Senate on an annual basis, finally, after a recommendation from the governor. We also receive payments in lieu of taxes. That's what pilots are. A pilot is an agreement for a particular organization or property to pay a set amount over a period of years so that they can get their business moving and operating in a way that's going to benefit the community. It's determined by, really, the agreement is determined by a property owner and the municipalities that are involved, whether they're towns and villages and the county. Obviously, it impacts us, but we have very little say in the negotiation. And then the tax levy, we have total control of. It's what we assess school taxes towards based on the property value determined by the assessors in the municipalities, and it's what we would consider the local share. What are we hearing and what do we know? State aid is in flux. It's constantly in flux year to year. Last year we got a report early, and the report from the governor said that our foundation aid, the largest portion of aid, was going to be a set amount. It was all determined by the legislature. The legislature was about $583,000 less. So it goes up and down as negotiations at the state level continue. But it's a good glance at what's projected. If you look at the sheet, it has a projection of what all our different aid categories are expected to be next year. A lot of what drives aid and a lot of what drives any formula that we use moving forward is going to be the rate of inflation. If you look at the rate of inflation in total United States was 2.6% in November. You should also know or understand, if you watch the news, that we look at things like insurance and building materials, and as certain as certain things happen throughout, like when California burns down, lumber and roofing and everything else is going to change in terms of price and fluctuate as we move forward. So that kind of determines what we can look at or what we hear on the outside. Our long-range strategy is to address our capital needs. We have moved forward with our long-range capital plan, which includes a series of building projects between the range of $40 or $50 million over the next period of time up to 2030. That's underway, and that's going to have an impact on helping us provide upkeep and nicely refurbished facilities for our students to help them succeed. We have, as always, additional social and emotional needs of our students that we want to make sure we address. We're addressing it with program, we're addressing it with resources, we're helping them with mental health services and counseling, and it has been a priority of the district over time. Electric buses by 2035, although it has been determined that that is something that we're going to move forward on. As far as our district is concerned, we haven't taken any steps, and nobody really has it in the state. People are having difficulty ordering buses, having them delivered, keeping them running if they have them, and others need significant infrastructure and infrastructure changes to their facilities to really get them on the road. So we'll see how that goes over the next 10 years. What do we do in terms of our process as we move forward in here? We are constantly, all of us as a team, you know, everybody at this table and everybody who's within the district hears from and talks to people about what they think the district should do or what they think kids need, and we evaluate it, look at it, and kind of update, modify, become flexible with our approach over an expansive period of time, and it doesn't change. We have had meetings and have reviewed our priorities or the priorities of all department heads, of all of the principals, of the executive directors and director, all the curriculum leaders, which is passed to us through their connections with our instructional professionals, parents, and things that they've learned throughout the year. And our primary focus is on evaluating the things that we put in the budget that impact students' academic, instructional, extracurricular, and social emotional needs to prepare them for a successful future. And that continues to be the foundation of where we move from, at least at the administrative level. What's going to impact our budget as things go on? Increased costs associated with meeting state and federal mandates. You hear about that all the time, unfunded mandates. Well, when somebody says you should be doing this, it typically costs money, and we find a way to make sure that we comply and do what we need to do. Changes in state and federal aid. Our foundation aid is, if you look at your sheet, expected to increase. By how much exactly is not known for certain, but we're expecting an increase for the 25-26 year. The economic trends that affect the local tax base, anything that's going on out in the community, out in the region, is of course going to have an impact on the fiscal state of our school district. Contractual obligations based on negotiations and things that we have to purchase for our students. Enrollment data, changes in enrollment data. If our enrollment declines, our aid will decline, and therefore our needs for staff and resources most likely would decline as well. And then the calculation of our district's tax levy limit, which is a combination of a formula I'll show you in a minute that is fairly complex, but it is used to determine what the local share should be based on the formula and gives the district and the board an opportunity to make some choices as to what they want to present to the public as part of the referendum for pass. If you look at our foundation aid over time, foundation aid was established in 2007, 2008 as a means to address the contract for fiscal equity, that campaign for fiscal equity. That was a lawsuit way back when. You can see that our foundation aid has stayed fairly stable, okay, over time. And then we've seen a significant increase since 1819 to today. You can see that our original foundation aid was $10,295,000 in 2007, 2008. That's when I came here, okay? The top bracket for what we were supposed to get within 3 years was $26 million at that time. So it looked like we were gonna be rolling in it pretty hard, but it didn't work out. A lot of changes at the state level, and finances at the state level have changed things. In 2004, 2024 and 2025 last year, okay, it was set to be $39,483 after the governor's recommendation was again massaged by the legislature and put into effect. So there has been a significant change and significant increase in what our foundation has been over time. And then what we're expected for next year on the estimate that you see in front of you is $42,408,000, which is about a projected 7% increase or a little more than that from this year to next year. If you look at the foundation aid formula versus foundation aid we received versus the formula, you can see the bottom line is the same trend as the graph I just showed you before. That's what we've received. If you see the top line, that top line defines what we were supposed to get based on the formula. Over that period of time, that gap, okay, between those two lines, that's been $214 million, I'm not wearing my glasses, $282,000 over time that the district did not get, that the formula said the district was supposed to get. As things played out and as they reviewed things, there were districts that got a lot more foundation aid than they were projected to get, above the top line there, and there were others like us who received less. A lot of it was based on the perception of student wealth or community wealth and how much money was really out there and, you know, who deserved what. As it is now, we're kind of tied, all right? We're gonna be getting what we are projected to get out of the formula from this point forward, given all the certainty that we have today, which changes tomorrow, right? If you look at the tax levy and the total budget, you can see that that light blue area is what our levy has been over time as compared to our budget. Although we haven't seen a severe spike in our budget from year to year to year, it's been a gradual growth. You can see that our levy has gone up and down significantly and then flattened out since 2017, 2018, or a little earlier forward. Where were those spikes? Those spike years of levy were due to drops in aid and also renegotiations where we didn't have pilot income coming in for that particular aid, so the levy went up. Okay? Here's the property tax cap. It's a formula. What you do is, in simple terms, what you do is you take all of the money that we have coming in this year, okay? Define how much of it is the levy. Look at some structural variables that are given to you by the state, which includes a growth factor for development in the community, along with an inflationary factor, which is going, right, this year is 2%, even though the rate of inflation was higher, it's 2%, okay? And then looking at other revenues that come in and other exclusions that we may have. What kind of exclusions may we have as we go out to calculate it? Well, we did we're in the midst of an elevator emergency project. We're in the midst of finishing the emergency project on the parapet at the high school. We have additional construction that we're doing that in the past we had told the public that, hey, here's a referendum. This is what it's going to cost you as a taxpayer to do this particular project. We're going to have to increase our levy over time. That's flattening out, but some of the construction that we're doing can give us some relief in terms of asking for a little bit more money so it doesn't pull away from our aid or the programs that we have for our kids. The property tax cap formula has to be presented, well, it has to be, has to be filed with the state and the controller on February 28th, March 1st, and we're planning to do it. There are some variables out there that we're wrestling with right now to do our calculation in a way that's responsible and accurate. That we don't really have a lot of control of, but we will put good judgment toward it. And other than that, time for questions if you have any. We're all good?
No, looks like we're all good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Clucci.
Thank you.
Dr. Kilmer, that's the end of, there we go. All right, next up on the agenda are policies. So we have a series of policies that we did the first reading at last time. So we haven't heard anything about it, so we're just going to group them all together. So we'll take policies, item A through F. And this is going to be the second and final reading. So if I can have a motion for policy items A through F, please.
I'll move.
Thank you, Kristen. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Sean. Any discussion on the policies? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next up, we have committee discussions. We do have one committee, the policy committee. Kristen?
Yeah, thank you. We met last Friday to review our next stack of policies. I've talked before that what we're trying to do is clean them up and condense them. Basically, less words that could potentially have to keep being changed. So instead of citing law, for instance, it refers you back to the law. That way, every time the legislature changes the law, it doesn't make our policy obsolete because we use the words that they just took out. So we've been sort of systematically working through that with the help of our attorneys at Ferrara. The policies we just approved are some examples of that. We continue to move through and doing those in batches. I anticipate that we'll have another group coming maybe on the next agenda of what we did last week.
Thank you very much. Next up is the consent agenda. So if I can have a motion to group items A through F of the consent agenda, please.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Tom. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, David. Any discussion on consent items A through F? Heard none? All those in favor?
Aye.
Is there anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next up is personnel. So I'm going to start with item A, which is a support staff retirement. Whereas Richard Hogan admirably served students and staff of the Oswego City School District as a systems administrator from October 31st, 1991, with a full commitment and best interest to all the students, and worked in partnership with his fellow employees. It be resolved that the district recognizes his dedication, and we express our sincere gratitude and appreciation for the many years of service, 34 years of service. So if I can have a motion, please?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, David. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tom. Any discussion?
Just to reiterate a thank you to Mr. Hogan for all those years. We greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, Rick was always behind the scenes, but he fixed most of the stuff. I mean, if he made a phone call, it was done, and he'll be missed.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have some professional staff recommendations. I'd like to group B, C, and D together. If we can have a motion for B through D, please.
I'll move.
Thank you, Kristen. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Julie. Any discussion on B, C, and D? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries. And then we have some more support staff recommendations. I'd like to group items E through I, please. So that's the remainder of our personnel items. So we have a motion for items E through I.
I'll move it.
Thank you, Sean. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tom. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have 3 items under finance. So if I can have a motion for items A through C, please.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Julie. Is there a second? Thank you, Sean. Any discussion on finance items A through C? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Is anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next on the agenda are items from the board. Do any board members have items this evening?
I just wanted, I know we've talked about the musical. I wanted to commend Dr. Kilmer for his performance in Newsies, but moreover than that, the performance was, for me, a real reminder of the talent we have in our district. And more than that, I was really overwhelmed thinking about all it took to put that production together. So I just, again, wanted to say, wow, and we are really in a beautiful spot with some talented staff and students. So it was tearful, like that good. Not when you were up there, I wasn't teary, but later, I was teary, yeah, I was.
Thank you, Julie. Any other board members this evening? Okay. There is a need for an executive session this evening for the purposes of the medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person or corporation, and there will not be a vote afterwards. So if I can have a motion to move to executive, please.
I'll move.
Thank you, Sean. A second.
I'll
Kristen.
second.
Thank you. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, motion carries. Have a great evening, everybody.